Hey, I'm Mike from How We Do Disney, and welcome to another stroll video. This time today we're going to the Station Nightclub Memorial. I will explain it as we go through it, and I have a little commentary after this, but till then, let's go. So it's over here on the left. Hi. Today is not a stroll video, nor is it a Disney video or a Disney announcement. We're here at the site of the Station Nightclub. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a walk around first, and then I'm going to lead you to the back of the memorial, Station Nightclub Memorial, and tell you a little bit of the story, show you a little bit of the timeline that's on the back wall. So let's do this. Now I'm kind of skipping over a part. I will get back to that. I don't know if you can make any of these out. It's very sunny. Now what I just showed you is I showed you a wall that has, let's see, a timeline between what has happened from as far back as 60 years ago to 14 years after. This is a, try to give you a rundown of what happened. Starting by a little history going based on this wall. It goes down through certain things that, happen in order to set what happened on February 20th, 2003 in motion. 60 years before that was probably the greatest fire where 492 people died at the Coconut Grove in Boston. Which is in 1942. It was the most deadliest nightclub fire in American history. It is still the worst. The station is the 4th deadliest fire or nightclub fire. This building at 211 Coesit Ave, West Warwick, was opened in 1947. It went through a lot of iterations. It was it started as a gin mill. It turned to Cedar Acres Inn, which is the meeting place for a union, local 1350. Then changed its name to the Dollhouse. Eventually it became a restaurant. The capacity was set at 161 in 1982. Then it was turned to the Glenn's Pub and Cracker Jack. 10 years before the fire in 93, it became the filling station. Capacity was set to 317 by 99. 3 years before, in 2000, the Didarian, a local businessman, and his brother Jeffrey, poorly paid $130,000 to take over the business and shorten the name to the station. And the fire marshal raised the capacity to 401 standing occupants, because now it was a music venue. The noise problem, which we have neighbors behind here, and I'll show you behind this plaque right here. There's a neighborhood over here, and with the door open, there's loud music and not the right insulation. So they got insulation. The ironic thing is that in 2000, they purchased 25 sheets of polyurethane packing foam for the station from the neighbor, Barry Werner, who's actually, the neighbor over here. Let's see, Fire Marshal Inspector Club, he found 9 code violations but failed to note the 900 square feet of flammable polyurethane foam, soundproofing foam. Well, that was glued to or all around the stage and around the alcove. This event is pretty important, so I'm going to read this. 3 days before the event, there was known as the Chicago Stampede. I'll read it. 21 people are killed and 50 injured following a stampede at E2, an overcrowded club on the east side of Chicago. Later that same night, pyrotechnics from the band Jet City, they need to clean this, set the ceiling of the Fine Line that same night. A Fine Line Music Cafe in Minneapolis on fire. Automatic sprinklers extinguished the flame, and all 120 patients escaped without injury. The bands did not have a permit for the fire. Now let's go over something that is, I'm just going to use my failed memory to kind of paint this picture. The Station Nightclub, I will put a picture of the property. I'll also put a picture of the blueprint, the sky view, and several other pictures. I will also put a picture of, or a link that will send you to the memorial site if you want to donate money. And it will also show the 100 victims of this fire as well. It will show you a picture and a bio of the 100 victims of this fire. So what happened is that tickets were sold. Tour manager Dan Beagley set up a pyrotechnic display. Pyrotechnics up. And 27 minutes before, news photographer arrives. Now this is the irony. This is among many of the sad stories. WPRI and PRI TV news photographer Brian Butler arrived at the station. His job for the evening is to shoot video for a news story Jeff Didarian is doing on nightclub safety in the aftermath of the Stampede in Chicago. The irony is he was coming into what will become a death trap. So now we get into the event. There was a couple of bands that opened up for them. One was called Fathead. and I don't know if there was another band. I wish I remember the name of it. There was at least a band that opened up from them. This was on a Wednesday. At around 11 o'clock, the pyrotechnics took place. Now, I have to try to set a picture that this place is small and it is short. I've never been there, but I assume that the stage is probably about 8 feet from the moment, from where, if you stand on stage, it's probably 8 to 10 feet above you. It's not very high, and neither is the ground where everybody was packed into. I will show you a link to the actual video from inside. I have a hard time finding the first part where it's a lot of stock shots going around, videotaping people, saying hi to the camera, and taking pictures of exit signs and all stuff like that. I'm going to turn the camera around and I'm going to try to see out there. That parking lot that is there now is probably about a quarter of the size of the parking lot that night. I'm not very good at judging this, but I'm assuming that not these railings that are in front of me, but those railings are probably where the building starts. So as you can see, it's not a lot of room to the back. When you walk in the door, you either have to go up a handicap ramp that goes like this. Let's use those railings as the front door. Or there's stairs a few steps over there. Otherwise, there's the railings that go across. You enter the door, and immediately, I think you go to... Let's go down there. So, we're at the entrance. You immediately walk in. I try to think how it is. I think when you walk in, there was a wall over here, and you could enter over here or over here. Over here took you to the bar. There's a dance floor on the other side of this wall, and the stage is over on this side. And the alcove. So at this point, we'd be over by where the stage is. When the fire went off at the beginning of the set, at this point, from all accounts, the place was packed to, where you couldn't, spread your arms out. You were pretty much packed in like sardines. And we'll get to the wall again. Within 15 seconds, pyrotechnics burnt out in the last of their sparks. 18 seconds after, from the initial point of start, a small flame started at the drum alcoves and quickly grew. At 36 seconds after, this is after the initial, he started off the pyrotechnics. From the moment the pyrotechnics started, that's what this is saying. 20 seconds, fire is spotted at the point where you're like, wait, that's not going out. That's not supposed to happen. 36 seconds, they stop playing Jack Russell, infamous words, wow, that's not good. At 37, Stampede, the orderly evacuation quickly turned into chaos. Patrons surged towards the main entrance, which is pretty much all the entrances that was known to the general public. There was also one, if you're facing the stage, there was an exit to the right of the stage. That was being blocked by bouncers. Bouncers were turning people away, or a bouncer was turning people away, allegedly. It's argued who is telling the truth. Patron surged toward the main entrance. West Warwick police officer Mark Knott, standing just outside the exit, is knocked over the railing of the club steps by the rush of people exiting the building. He landed on the hood of a parked car and radioed headquarters Stampede. After 39 seconds, the exits are blocked. At this point, people moved to the main exit. A few attempted to leave by the stage door, but turned away by staff for band only, allegedly. 41 seconds, apparently Jack Russell was able to get out. 45 seconds is the last known photograph from inside the fire of Jeffrey Rader. Jeffrey Rader, standing in front of the stage, a drink and cigarette still in the hand. Behind him is the west wall. The club is fully engulfed, so the west wall is behind me. Obviously, it doesn't no longer exist, but that's the west, because south is that way, north is that way, east, west. After exiting the building, he returned to search for his girlfriend, Becky Shaw. Both perished in the fire. Within 60 seconds after the fire, the narrow 36-inch passage leading to the club front exit was clogged, and it shows a video where people are actually stacked on top of each other, and that was true further into the club. Some people got lucky to find other exits, but, not many. Some people are lucky to get out through broken windows. 462 men and women shoulder to shoulder inside the fire. Over capacity. Set capacity at 317 in 1999. So it was over 100 plus over capacity. 90 seconds after the fire started, the fire consumed the oxygen. Basically, the normal 21% of oxygen level dropped to only 2%. And I know of a woman who was actually burnt in the fire. A few people burnt in the fire. One was burnt just by the heat. And actually, people have survived inside the fire. I don't know how many people, but I know of a few people. Gina Russo, and I want to say alleged, out of no disrespect to Gina, because we all know. Her and her husband, Freddie, I'm going to pronounce it, Alfred Freddie Chrysostoma. I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. They tried to get out the back exit. It didn't work. So turned around, and he was like, no matter what you do, just keep going. And at some point, he gave her a shove, and she turned around and realized he wasn't there anymore. She ended up falling to the floor and being trapped among people. She was severely burned. She survived. After 2 minutes, a flashover occurred. That's where the air in the room gets so hot that it actually ignites, exceeding over 1,830 degrees. It took 5 minutes for the firemen to get there. The last known survivor run down a handicap access ramp in front of the club. I've seen the video. If you watch the video, I advise you to take caution, because there is that moment 6 minutes after the last known survivor to escape on their own ran down the handicap ramp, and let's just say it wasn't the greatest predicament for him, but he survived. So I'm going to tell you a few stories. There's a saying around Rhode Island that says, only in Rhode Island. I've run into people, and they know people who know people who know people, and you have a story to tell, and they know people who are part of it. The first story, short story, is about my wife. I met my wife in 2008. The fire happened in 2003, so I didn't know her around the time the fire happened. We were driving one day, and I've heard about the station fire. I might have got a little more invested in the story a little bit, maybe before I started kind of getting engaged into the story, because my wife told me how her brother called and said, hey, Great White is playing at the station, you want to go? And my wife is pretty much straight, like, my wife is the person who's like, if it's not on Friday, if it's not on Saturday, then we're gonna, I'm not gonna go, 'cause I'm not gonna go on a work night. But normally she might have went. She's not a huge fan of Great White. She is 4'11", and she would not have made it out alive because she goes to the front row, and I would have never met somebody who saved my life. I had to move into the car because there are some people here coming to recognize the tragedy from 16 years ago. 15 years ago. It's amazing. It's 15 years ago. It's amazing how much time has lapsed between, situations like that. But let me get back. So I told you that story. The second story I want to tell you is about Stephen Mancini, who was a guitar player in a band called Fathead. And they opened up for Great White that night, obviously. He passed away in the fire. They found his car, which I think might have it definitely had some damage and, wreckage because of the close proximity to the station it was parked. My wife works at a law office. She's a secretary. She answers phones. So when you have repeat callers, you kind of develop a relationship. Well, she developed a relationship. I don't know the story, and I shouldn't even tell that story, even if I knew it. Where it got onto music and be like, oh, you married? Oh, you got a husband? Oh, what does he do? Oh, what? Then to find out that I play guitar and I'm a musician. I don't know if I could zoom this in. No, I can't. Found out I was a musician. So, of course, she got on to the story about her son, who was in the nightclub fire, passed away. She said, listen, I have, a bunch of gear that I would like to give to your husband. She's like, I got memorabilia, I got stuff like that. This was a brand new guitar of his. So, even though it was his and there's an attachment to it, there's probably a guitar that he had from, 5 years ago that is, his baby and a more important guitar to her and her family and a memory. So I got a guitar, I think I got a wah, I got some strings, etc. And I was honored. I played the guitar once and only on stage at Ollie's. I made a speech about it, and it is a humbling experience to be given something that belonged to somebody who passed away in a Station Nightclub. I don't know why she chose me. Luck, because I was the only person, kind of developed a relationship with, she developed a relationship with my wife, and gave me that great gift. I still have the guitar. It's I restrung it, which I wish I didn't, because I played 3 songs and the third song I broke a string. And I think it would have been better if I played the strings that he might have put his fingers on, a little more special. But that's my story, and there are hundreds of stories, because as I said, 100 people passed away, before about 432 people in the fire, so there's 332 stories to be told. And it is a historical event. They fought hard to get this memorial up, Gina Russo and the whole Station Nightclub Memorial Foundation. they are commended because it is a beautiful park. I mean, it's small because the station was small. And I guess the last story I'll tell is that we were driving down the road one day, and I knew about it, and we drove down Route 2, Bald Hill Road, and came up on Cohasset Ave. And I was like, isn't that where the station fire happened? Like, yeah, it's right down the corner. So we turned around, we came down here, we parked here, and at this point, it is not a memorial park. I think that happened about 11 or 12 years. I think a year or two ago it finally got built. I think last year it officially opened. Don't quote me. And it was a big parking lot at this point. The fence was taken down and a lot of makeshift memorials were put up, which is in a time capsule, which is buried over somewhere around here. And it hit me. I started crying. I'm not afraid to admit it. It got to me. Because my connection there was, it's rock and roll. You know, my wife was almost in that incident, and I would never met her, and I might have never got my life saved. And 100 beautiful souls lost their lives. 332 people escaped with little to extreme injuries. But I'm going to let you go. So, this is Mike saying, remember to make a wish and do as dreamers do. And I wish that you get yourself involved in this story if you feel comfortable. And I hope that we never forget what happened that night. See ya. Now I will show you the placards of the 100 beautiful souls who lost their lives. I hope, because the sun kind of made it almost impossible for me to tell 100% if all of them came out, so I apologize in advance, but here they are.